Can you afford this house? I'm going to show you an inside scoop on what we look at as mortgage lenders to qualify someone for a home loan. This is going to be a high level overview. Make sure you stay to the very end of the video so you get an idea of what we look at. That way you can run some numbers at home. But most of all, if you're ready to get qualified, you can always send me an email. We can get you started with our quick loan application and get you on to buying your next home. Now, I was browsing through Reddit one day and I came across this thread. So I'm going to read some of the details to you, and then we're going to break down to see if this couple can actually qualify for this home purchase. So they basically started off saying that they're looking to relocate back home, which is in Ohio. They don't specify where in Ohio, so I'm just going to assume that it's Cleveland. Obviously, it's probably not Cleveland, but for the sake of our video, I'm going to explain to you why we need a city to figure this number out, and the importance of it. So they're moving back to Cleveland. Rental properties around where I am moving are slim to none. I'm looking at houses in the $100,000 to $120,000 range. We need to be moved by the middle of January 2023. This is the breakdown of what my fiance and I have. Now, before I break down the rest of this video, this story that I just read sounds so familiar to so many of you that I talk to, because many of you are relocating across the country, whether it be for work, whether it be for family reasons, or maybe your kids are going to a better school. There's thousands of you that watch our videos and go through this exact same scenario. And the one thing that I love is that they're planning in advance. So as you know that they're mentioning that they're looking to move of January of next year. So many of you also do the same thing, whether you're 6 months or even a year out from buying. So kudos to these guys for taking the necessary steps to make sure they connect the dots prior to the move. Because I always mention this to all of our clients. If there's something on your credit report that we need to fix, we now have the time to give you the advice, give you the guidance to make sure that you can correct the errors on your credit report, or maybe it's income related, where maybe you're self-employed and we have to adjust your tax returns before your next filing, or we need to talk to your CPA to make sure that we're all on the same page to make sure that you can qualify. So if that's any of you, make sure that you do talk to a lender ahead of time. That way you give yourself time to make the necessary adjustments and you're not putting yourself into a pinch and forcing yourself to go into a rental, which at that point, you're paying someone else's mortgage, and who knows where the real estate market or interest rates could go. They could get worse. And now you're delaying home buying versus taking on the appreciation and the benefits of being a homeowner. So back to our video. They have a 690 and a 701 credit score, so very good. Monthly debt of $700. Now they don't specify what the debt is. All they say is that the monthly debt is $700. So we don't know if it's credit cards, car payments, student loans, whatever that is. But just know that when we look at your monthly debt, we do take into account all the monthly debt on your credit report. So if it's not on the credit report, we're not necessarily taking it into account. But that doesn't mean that if you go and buy a car and your lender pulls your credit and the car doesn't show up on the credit report, that we don't need to count it. That just means that because of the timing of you financing the vehicle and it showing up on your credit report, we just missed it. You still would have to disclose that to your lender. So don't think you're going to get away with it, because we will find out that there's something out there, that the debt that didn't show up on the credit report. They make a combined salary of $60,000, so pretty decent income. They have $11,000 saved, but they're hoping to have another $4,000 to $6,000 saved up before the move date. So total $15,000 to $17,000, which is really good. They both have jobs and they can transfer to a job within the city. So job hunting won't be a problem, which is really good as well. Because for all of you that are moving from one city to the next, what we look at as a lender is your employment situation. So if you have the ability to work remotely, that's a huge plus, because we just need a letter from your employer stating that you can work remotely. Your income's not going to change with your job relocation. Everything is status quo, which in the lending world we love. Now, however, if you are moving from one job to the next, here's where things get a little complicated. You have to figure out, one, can I purchase prior to my move, or do I want to purchase after the move? And the reason why you need to figure that out is because the employment situation and your income hugely varies on that decision. Because if you decide to buy prior to your move, I can use your current income wherever you're working at. Now, for a lot of you, the question is, when you move to your new state, is your income going to go up or is it going to go down? Now, for some of you, it goes down, which means one thing: your buying power is going to be decreased. You can put less money down because you're buying the home as a primary residence. However, because let's say you went from $100,000 a year salary to now $85,000, that's less buying power that a lender has to work with. So that's why you need to make that decision as to whether or not you buy prior to the move or after the move. Now, if you caught what I said that you're buying the house as a primary residence. You might be saying, Sean, well, I am buying this house as a primary residence, but the question the lender is going to ask you is, if you are living, let's say in this case, these guys live in Texas. You can't work in Texas and buy a primary in Ohio. Unless he's working remotely, you can do that. However, we know that they're relocating. So this is where if you do buy your home prior to your move, your lender would consider that buying a second home or a vacation home. Now, don't get caught up and focused on the word second home, because that's just terminology that we use in the lending world. It's just not your primary residence. So if you do that, you have to have at least 10% down to make that purchase. This is why, again, like I mentioned, you've got to get with the lender first, because there's all these little nuances that take place that you're not necessarily thinking about. All you're thinking about is, I'm making a move, I need to buy a house, and I'm going to move into it, and that's it. But any good lender is going to ask you these questions, and we're going to dive deep to figure out how do we best structure the deal so that way you can get into the house. So back to our story here. We won't have enough for a 20% down payment. Biggest myth in the mortgage industry is that you have to have 20% down. And if you've been following me, you know I always talk about this. We don't need 20% down. So kudos to these guys, again, for not letting the down payment be a hindrance in them not purchasing a home. Is it worth it to go with FHA financing or a conventional loan in our situation? The house we move into will most likely be our main property for at least 3 to 5 years, depending on our financial status. If you need any more information, feel free to ask. Thank you. This is a conversation I literally have every single day, and I love this. And this is why I wanted to share this with you. So now let's break down this entire scenario here. They're looking for a home priced from $100,000 to $120,000. Let's just take the higher end, and we're going to use $120,000. Now, in this case, the fact that they don't have a ton of money saved up, we could look at either FHA financing with 3.5% down, or with conventional financing. If they're first-time home buyers, we could look at a 3% down payment. Now, let's just say we're going to run with FHA financing on this specific deal. So FHA would require a 3.5% down payment, which in our case, at $120,000, we're going to do some quick math here. We're looking at only $4,200. How amazing is that? $4,200 to buy a house. $4,200 to get into this property. Now we're going to break down what the monthly payment's going to roughly look like. Okay, so again, I assumed we're just going to use Cleveland, Ohio as our city, because as you price out any mortgage, a lender will need to know the city that you're looking to purchase in, because rates do vary across the country. That's why it's very misleading when you are relocating and you talk to a lender in one state, they quote your rate, they didn't ask you where you're moving to, and now you're basing your situation, because you don't want to talk to a lender yet, on wrong information. So you always want to make sure that you go through and you providing all the accurate data so you can make the right decision. So again, I'm assuming this is in Cleveland, and with an FHA loan with 3.5% down, today's mortgage rate in this situation is going to be about 5.625. Now again, any lender is going to ask you several questions regarding your credit score, your debt to income ratio, the loan type, the loan occupancy of whether you're living in the home or not, and where the property is located and the type of financing you're using. So there's a bunch of factors that make up this number here. So based on some of the assumptions that they gave us, this is where I'm basing my interest rate on. So we're going to use 5.625% with a 3.5% down payment. Our monthly principal and interest payment is $667. For some of you that are watching this, that's a pretty amazing number. And honestly, I haven't seen something that low in a really long time. Now, when we look at someone's entire mortgage payment, I've used this acronym before and I'll share it with you again. It's PITI. So the PI stands for principal and interest, and that's what we just figured out by using our 5.625% as our interest rate based off of our loan amount. Now, I just did a quick Google search and I looked at the average property tax in Cleveland, Ohio, and it says it's 1.48%. So now if we take our $120,000 sales price, multiply that by 1.48%, we get $1,776. We're going to divide that by 12. We're going to get taxes of $148 a month. Amazingly cheap. And the last I in the PITI acronym is for insurance, or your homeowner's insurance. So now in our case, did a quick Google search again, and it shows to be about $74 a month. Now with FHA, we also have to take into account our mortgage insurance. So our monthly mortgage insurance factor is 0.85%. That's standard. Every lender goes off the same number. Now that number is going to boil down to about $82 a month. Now remember, mortgage insurance is not your homeowner's insurance. Mortgage insurance is there just so that way if you do default on your mortgage, the lender has some sort of insurance to be able to recoup some of their losses. So it's essentially money that gets thrown away. That's why a lot of people hate paying mortgage insurance. So now we have all of our factors that's going to make up our monthly payment. We have $667, which is our principal and interest. We have our property taxes of $148. We have our homeowner's insurance of $74, and our mortgage insurance of $82 gives us a total monthly payment of $971. How amazing is that to own a home for less than $1,000 a month? First of all, you got to move to Ohio for that to happen. But regardless of where interest rates are today, this is the power of owning real estate. So now we need to figure out, can they qualify for this mortgage? Now, when we look at qualifying someone for a mortgage, we look at two separate ratios. The front end ratio, which is your housing ratio divided by your monthly income. And then we look at your back end ratio, which is your housing payment plus the monthly debt divided by your monthly income. Now we're going to figure out, are they in line to try to qualify? So let's look at the front end first. Typically on a front end ratio, you want to be at about 28 to about 31%. We don't really want to go any higher. Can you go higher? Yes, you can, but now we take into other factors as far as what you can potentially qualify for. So let's just be conservative here. Let's use the 28%. Now, remember, they said they make $60,000 a year, so it boils down to our $5,000 a month. So now we're going to take our monthly front end ratio of 971. We're going to divide that by 5,000. This gives us 19%. Excellent way to start. Now we're going to take their back end ratio, which is the 971 plus, they said they have monthly debt of $700. Okay, so that gives us 1671. And now let's divide that by 5,000. That gives us 33%. Now on an FHA loan, we can actually go up to 50%. Sometimes you can even exceed 50%. But remember, this is based on your gross income, which is before taxes. So imagine if your gross income and your debt to income ratio is over 50%, what is it going to be after taxes? It's going to go up significantly. So this is why when you qualify for a mortgage, you need to run the numbers with your lender. Because if your lender is max qualifying you for your loan, it really could put you in a bad position to where you might be house poor and now you're working just to pay your mortgage. This is where a lot of people, especially first-time home buyers, get into trouble because you're stretching and you're chasing the dream home versus being disciplined and staying true to what you can actually qualify for. Then once you get a promotion, you guys start making more money, or maybe you sell the house, you come into more money, you put a bigger down payment, and now you get the house you really want. So now, being that this back end ratio is 33%, remember, like I said, we can sometimes even exceed 50%. So we have a front end of 19 and we have a back end of 33. And honestly, if I was doing this loan, this, as much as we hate saying the word slam dunk, this would be a slam dunk. This is a great situation for anybody to be in. So in my opinion, even if they were to look at conventional financing, this would be a good way to go. If I was looking at doing their loan, I would look at both conventional and FHA, and I would show them their options, and then they can decide what makes the most sense for them to get into the house. The only real big difference that you're going to have between the two is the down payment slightly. FHA is 3.5, conventional is 3, and the monthly mortgage insurance is really going to be the only big difference. Interest rates may not vary a whole lot because the loan amount is so small. So it really may not make that big of a difference on the monthly payment. So I would say for these guys, if they were looking to purchase and they came into our office today, these guys would be good to go to start shopping confidently at $120,000. We could actually take them a little higher. But if that's the range that they're comfortable at, I'm more than happy working with them to get them out in that certain situation. Now, remember, this is strictly based on what they described their situation is. If you are looking to buy and you're unsure of where you stand and you know some of these numbers and you're just not really ready to pull your credit yet, make sure to send me an email and I can break down the exact same scenario just like how we did here to give you a rough ballpark if you can purchase. But if you are ready, make sure to hit the description. There's a link to our loan application. You can get started, and in 3 easy steps, we can get you qualified. As long as you meet the criteria, send you out looking for your home. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.